Hey guys, when we last left off, we were talking about a couple different things. We were talking about specifically neighborhood identity, as we were looking at various areas that make up race and different racial segregation, sometimes on purpose, sometimes by not. And we looked at Hispanics in Milwaukee, or African Americans, or Asian Pacific Islanders here. So showing you the different areas where they can tend to migrate or tend to reside. But then we talked about institutional racism, talking about apartheid and how it was done through the government. And specifically, we then led into neighborhood identities and how sometimes some neighborhoods can be taken over by new groups. And it doesn't have to be negatively, but we've seen it such as Little Italy, or we have our own Little Mexico. Eventually, though, we all do have a place that we recommend or we think of as our place. But sometimes we can see this with ethnicity as well, and how various ethnic groups can take association with that. But on the other hand, we have seen literally fighting over conflict. There's been race wars that have been fought over, obviously based on race, but also over land, and various ethnic conflicts that we have seen that occur. I want you to go ahead and explore some of those YouTube videos to see some of these different race wars and ethnic conflicts, and you can see them both in each of these videos. Now, specifically you think about, turf wars and taking over one area, and one of the best examples would be when you think about Israel versus Palestine. Literally, I feel like there's never been peace there anymore. If you don't know the history, Israel actually, after the mass genocides and the Holocaust, many people in the world felt that Israel needed, that the Jews needed a homeland, and this created Israel. Israel was created for this, but in doing so, it kicked the Palestinians out of this land. And since then, they have had multiple turf wars that have gone through, to the point where obviously the picture that was just depicted is almost a sad reality. Now, speaking of turf, in some cases, who counts can be dictated by the government, such as if you think about the United States. In the United States, early in history, when we decided to come up with our Constitution, one of the biggest compromises that were made was the Three-Fifths Compromise. The Three-Fifths Compromise was a compromise between the North and the South, where the South, who had a bountiful amount of slaves, wanted them to count toward voting. Now, obviously, they didn't want them to vote, but they wanted them to count toward the population for voting. So this led to a compromise which basically said that all black persons in the U.S. were counted as 3/5 of a person. Now, again, it didn't give them a vote, but it counted them toward the population toward voting. Also, think about 1924. All Native Americans were allowed to vote. Before then, their votes weren't counted. And then wasn't until 1920 that women finally had the right to vote. So again, we look at people's rights to vote, or people's ability to be able to use their home turf, and what matters. All right, I want you to think as we lead into the next lecture, are men and women equal? Explain your answer.